It is often said that one's nation is defined by their neighbours, both in how they interact with them and how they are seen by them. But some nations try their hardest to shut themselves off from the world, to isolate themselves and stand apart. When this happens, how does one from the outside even begin to understand them? Where do you start if you have no framework to begin with? Well, there's not really a good answer to that question, I'm afraid, but it does help you understand what it is like to learn of an alien culture. Today, I wish to speak of the Nassyans, a people who are truly one with nature and isolated from most of the world. So to begin, their origins are almost as old as time itself. It's unknown why exactly they did so, but they shut themselves off from the world all the way back into the past, some say as far as the primeval age. Though sources contradict this, if it is true, it would explain why they are so drastically different to all the other races of people. It would be quite easy to spot one out from a crowd. They are thin and tall, with elegant and pointed features. They also live for an insanely long time. Some say almost 10 times that of a normal person. They have been said to be somewhat attractive, yet slightly eerie, a little otherworldly in an almost creepy way. A lot of them have jet black eyes, which are somewhat sinister, yet kind of alluring in a bizarre way. This gets even weirder when everything about them appears to be strange, not just their physical appearance, but their society, their clothes, their buildings, even their language are completely different to everything we know. See, that is something that actually greatly disappoints me. Not that they are different, I actually love that fact about them as it gives me more to learn of the world, but the few bits of writing of Nassyans I have actually been able to acquire, I have absolutely no way of translating. It doesn't help that their history is completely shrouded in shadows and myths, and they split off so long ago that even their alphabet has changed by now. Luckily, a few outcasted Nassyans have been able to help me in teaching of their ways and translating some of these things for me. Supposedly it is easier the other way around, from what they say. And I have actually gone far east into their forest, as far as they would let me at least. But I'll retell that tale a little bit later. For now, I wish to speak of Nassyan culture. See, they are deeply tied to nature. To the outsiders, their forest is their domain, and they will never let anyone enter except for the few traders that they allow. But from their point of view, they are but extensions of the forest, and it is the forest that does not allow trespassers. They are just enacting its will. And from my understanding, they are truly one with their forest, and when they take, they make sure that they give back just as much. Their buildings are made of satin stone that are deliberately chosen to not affect their ecosystem, and are peacefully placed within the trees. In fact, that's something I think I should note. Almost all of them actually live within trees. They do not chop down the trees to build where they were, but place their homes atop them. In fact, they actually go so far as to cultivate the giant trees in order to turn their massive trunks into walkways. This has also allowed them to create multiple levels of elevations in the trees which they actually live in. I'm sure one place serves as their actual resting area and another their work area, for example. They can also use these trunks as walkways that link them to other trees. This would allow some Nassyans to spend vast amounts of time never touching the ground and simply staying within these trees. Now, I should also note that they can harness the power of nature, like their thornweavers do, but it is not natural to them. See, the land they inhabit has tons of these natural glowing green crystals. What they actually are is quite unknown, but it is like thundersteel. It is a conduit of power. Like how thundersteel is to a storm, these crystals are nature's power. This allows the unbonded Nassyans to perform some of the same acts, though much more limited and weaker, and it serves as an amplifier for thornweavers who are good at it. Now, I would like to briefly talk about how their society is structured, because there are a few things of note. For a start, they actually have a sort of caste system with the Nassyans and the thornweavers, but it's not really what you would expect. See, by now I'm sure you're well aware of the blooming ritual. This is where all children have a sort of coming-of-age ritual, where some become thornweavers, but most do not. See, the thornweavers grow and learn their purpose, and find out how to actually help their people. They're the ones that actually go out and do the tasks, they're the ones that defend their home, and they're the ones that grow all the crops that they eat. In short, almost all of the work is done by thornweavers, and the unbonded Nassyans do not have anywhere near as many responsibilities, but they also have a lot less power. In short, they are split into two castes, one that does all the work but makes all of the decisions, and reaps the rewards so that all Nassyans may flourish. The unbonded Nassyans, in turn, just need to make sure that the thornweavers are okay. Now, the leaders of these people are indeed thornweavers. They are a council of elders that are the oldest of their kind. In fact, they're probably the oldest of any kind as well. In truth, they can really be ancient, as thornweavers live even longer than normal Nassyans. Each member of the elders usually is in charge of some specific thing. They will have one elder that sits on a war seat, for example, one in charge of agriculture, maybe another that's just in charge of the blooming ritual. These are just some examples. I don't know how many seats there actually are, or what they are in charge of truly, but I suspect that these are not set in stone. If there is a crisis or calamity, seats might be created or destroyed. What is set in stone, however, is their borders, which they will defend zealously, letting no one into their borders with only two real exceptions: traders and merchants, along with any cohorts they might have, who are only allowed into certain parts of the forest and are sworn to secrecy, and their neighbours the Valjordan. You see, in truth, they actually share the same forest, and their borders are quite large and a bit confusing in areas. This was because of a deal they made a very long time ago with the ancestors of the current Valjordan. The interesting thing about this from the Valjordan side is that they forgot the details of their arrangement a long time ago, but the Nassyans have not, and for one reason or another, they refuse to share what they are. It makes it a bit harder when you realize that translators aren't exactly very common. This has resulted in the Valjordans having to be very careful when they do anything within the deep forest, lest they incur the wrath of the thornweavers. And from their point of view, it is very inconsistent. For example, many Valjordan have to hunt clades of dragons in order to live within the woods, and the thornweavers are sometimes okay with this. And sometimes, if a particular clade of blood chasers is killed for whatever reason, the thornweavers will destroy them out of anger. It's not really known why or how they do this. Another weird thing they seem to be unable to learn is how far in they can actually go. A Nassyan has been seen by a Valjordan scouting party deep within the forest, calmly giving them a wave, but when they went in again, nowhere near as far, to rest by a waterfall, they went missing, and thorns have been seen piercing the ground around their last known location. I think it's quite obvious who the culprits are. Do not feel too bad for the Valjordan though, for they have tried to wrongly invade and conquer the Nassyans on many occasions, and have been thwarted many times over. I would say it is a bit of a back and forth, but really the Nassyans have always respected the rules. It's just that they don't share what those rules are with anyone. But there is one last thing about their relationship that I take an interesting note to. See, they do not let outsiders live within their cradle, with one exception. Lost Valjordan children abandoned into the forest might be adopted by Nassyans and raised as their own. It is a rare occurrence, and I'm sure they're probably not treated as true equals given their lifespan, but it is something I thought is noting, since it has happened before. Now, I should note that I have actually gone into their forest while I was travelling with a Sargildian merchant. I was curious about these people of the wood, and wanted to see for myself what was and what was not true. A few days into the journey, our convoy had met with the locals, who told us to go no further. Only about 3 of the 12 of them we met could speak our language, and they were all thornweavers. They had grown accustomed to the merchant, as it was not the first trip he had made there, but they were very weary of me. Something about me was just not to their liking, I suppose. I was asking them about a million questions, as I am often wont to do, but I'm sure it was more than just annoyance. Perhaps it was the fact I was writing everything down. Maybe they found my writing completely irritating. Or maybe it was the fact that I was using paper, since they hold nature as sacred and paper comes from nature. Perhaps the idea of paper was a bit offensive to them. I didn't really consider this until now, actually. But regardless, the Nassyans are the sort who will want to be left alone. They are the very definition of isolationists. They exclude and discriminate against outsiders. I know not what caused them to make their deal with the Valyordin of old in the first place, but something tells me they are not too happy with them living within their forest, but are oath-bound to allow them, sometimes. I truly wish their culture would grow to be more accepting with time, or perhaps enough outcasts will band together and form a new group of sorts, for I have so many questions I wish to ask these people. But another day, it would seem. Thank you for listening to my tales. I am the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe, it really does mean a lot to me. But, till next you meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.